And welcome to the episode. We have
Hi.
on here, Chris.
We do. I'm excited.
So, um, this individual I've been following pretty much as I can in the chat that we're involved in. We have a couple of signal chats that we're in together, and she posts some enlightening and very awesome, inspiring stories about things she's talked about in the past and done. And hopefully today she's going to share a few of those with us, and then later on we'll get into hopefully some of the ways she's broke these cases because she has her own private investigative firm. But we have Charlie on here. It's not that you can join us, Charlie.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So for our listeners, could you just go ahead and introduce yourself, your background, and if you have any education experience?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Charlie McNamara, and my agency is Sydney Black Investigations. My so yeah, I've had my agency for a few years now. I've been a licensed investigator for going on 5 years. My background is ugh, goodness, how to describe it? I've done so. Yeah, I went to university. I did sociology and political science, and I did theater arts, which was where the beginning of my life, my first career choice. I wanted to be a stand-up comic. I went to an arts magnet school for literary arts. An arts magnet school is like a high school where you it collects all the kids in a big region who are all sort of into like math or into whatever thing that they want to whatever, and you have to audition and blah blah. And yeah, I went to the one in my region, and yeah, I mean, it might sound strange to people without a background in the arts, but it changed my life. It is everything that I have done since, whether or not it makes any sense in the sort of direct context of what I'm doing. So it's basically you need to find your people if you don't quite fit and you're not quite doing well where you're at. It's not you that's wrong. It's where you are and the people you're with. So yeah, so since then I worked in labor politics, community organizing, get out the vote stuff. I worked for Acorn for some time. That was the organization that Obama got in trouble for working for, if you recall, way back during the election. It was just politics, whatever. And yeah, I mean, I since then I've been what have I made money doing? I've been a photographer. I've been stand-up comic, you knew that. I've been an English teacher. I've been, oh, what else have I been? Like a lot of things, like basically everything, a little bit of everything. Like people who know me, the big thing that I hear a lot is if you know me for long enough, like longer than a week or two, and if we talk enough, they're going to be like anything. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to, and they're like, oh wait, let me guess, yeah, you used to. Yeah, I have a very long resume, but but open source intelligence. I mean, I had to change careers, or well, I mean, it was COVID, right? I was in nonprofit operations management for a decade. That was the my last career, and so I had a company where I did consulting and field work for a variety of nonprofit organizations that were basically public facing nonprofit organizations. So, not charities so much, where you're like raising money to do a thing, but like I worked for the Canadian Museum of Nature, I worked for the Inside Out Film Festival, I worked for, oh goodness, there's a big long list of them. And yeah. So, but then COVID hit, and for, various reasons, I needed to switch careers. It was the universe was telling me in no uncertain terms that that needed to happen. So because most of the nonprofit organizations I worked for, because they were public facing, it was all large scale public events. And during COVID, the first people to shut down was us, and the last people to reopen was us. I don't even know that people still go to events even now. So I needed to find a career that made sense of my resume as it was. You don't want to change careers midlife and, try to like re-educate yourself. And, I know I'm not naive about the market. You can't just hop in and say, I want to be this now, unless, you have something that, you have something that people trust behind you to pay you to do that. So that's how I ended up in private investigation. The jack of all trades thing really lends itself well to private investigation. And the get out the vote stuff, like I'd spend my full-time job for a while was, oh yeah, I used to teach self-defense too. I did that also. Yeah, my job for a while, full-time, was spending half a day knocking on doors in low-income communities, basically engaging people on the idea of being organized. So not showing up at the door and being like, "Hi, I'm with the whatever party," or, anywhere on the spectrum. You show up at the door and you're like, "Hi, I'm talking to your neighbors about the, what issues that people have in the neighborhood." I'll bring up an example that somebody else has talked about. I'll be like, people in this building are really upset because of all the pigeons on the balcony. How do you feel about the pigeons on the balcony? And yeah, and then I'll be like, can I come in? Let's talk about it, and we'll have a conversation. So that was half my days. And then the other half I'd spend in high income communities knocking on doors and fundraising for the other work. So you're having very different conversations, but about the same stuff. And it's like, hi, can I come in? And I come in, sit on the couch. So like having both perspectives like that, sort of, having a conversation in your head all the time. And I did a lot of sponsorship engagement when I was working with nonprofit organizations. So I sat around boardroom tables a lot, talking to people in suits that get paid to make, do the marketing thing for their or for their company. And yeah, so you mix all that and you get, what it was? I was I was watching Jessica Jones, and I love Jessica Jones. She's just my favorite. And I was just like I was at home watching TV. It was during COVID, and I was like, oh my God, I wonder how hard it is to become a PI. And I looked into it, and it was easier than I thought it would be, and it was less expensive. I was like, I can do that. Like that's an accessible career change. And like I said, it made sense of the combination of everything I had done before. Like everything, like I did improv, I could do undercover work. I was a photographer. I know how to, like all the, and then all the other stuff, yeah, so that was that. And that's who I am.
I think we as OSINT analysts tend to spend a lot of time searching up niche topics so we know how to look for stuff. What are some of the most translatable skills that you picked up from that very varied early career that you think help you in your OSINT work?
Right. So it has nothing to do with OSINT. It's like the people skills. And I know, like, when I say people skills, you imagine, like, hi, I could come in a room and I can have a conversation with people and they find me charming. So my agency specializes in taking cases for ordinary individuals, families, small businesses. It's a market that most of the PI industry doesn't like dealing with directly. And it's because people are messy. People are, they're unpredictable, and cases like when people come to a private investigator, it's like if they go to the police, something's happened to them or there's something in their life that's to them really, really important. It's life or death. But they don't get what you do. Like if you call a plumber and the plumber comes in, you just put the plumber in the bathroom and let him fix your toilet. It doesn't matter how he's doing it, and you don't have to have a conversation with each other. But if you're going to serve private individuals, and this isn't about income, it's just if you're going to deal directly with somebody who's like, I've been scammed, or I'm in the middle of a romance scam, I think, or whatever it is, you need to be able to support that person in addition to conducting their investigation effectively. You need to be able to, like, people lie to you. People are afraid of what you think of them. People will call for an investigation and they'll already have it in their head how you're going to solve the problem for you. So, or for them, so they won't, so they tell you the story in a way that doesn't really get to the truth of it. It's not helpful for me as an investigator. So being able to read that and being able to support people and speak their language so that they give me what I need data wise to conduct an effective investigation up front, by far the most translatable thing that I bring from my history of experience. Because we specialize in open source intelligence investigation, some, like, we have partnerships with some other agencies where they're not, like, their thing is surveillance, their thing is the boots on the ground stuff, so they will outsource their OSINT work to us. So I'll do that, but it's the worst because the the cases come completely out of context. I'll get it'll be a case, it'll be a name, it'll be whatever little information they have about the person. It'll be like vital stats type stuff, like here's their birthday, this is the picture on their driver's license, maybe. And there's not a, like, the way I conduct investigations, what I'm used to, I look at that and I'm like, well, okay, like I'll do the basic stuff. I check all the boxes, but without context, I'm like, so I could give you an address maybe, but like I don't know who this person is. And if there's 500 people with the same name, whereas when I'm dealing directly with individuals, we can spend some time on the phone. And like, for example, my business partner is, she likes to hide in the shadows and not exist. She's not a secret, but she's kind of a secret. We met because she was one of my clients early on. She came to me because she wanted to find her sister, who she had not seen in 40 years. She had not seen her since she was 16, and since the sister was 16, and all she had was this very old picture and her name and who she was married to 20 years ago, like some basic stuff like that. And the way I found her sister eventually, like I had and with all my clients, I have a regular conversation with them. I keep them updated. We spend a lot of time on the phone. Eventually, the information, I was like, okay, what about her husband, the man that she was married to that you knew of? Like, what were his hobbies? What did he like to do? And her and her daughter got talking about it. What did they remember? What did they, their relationship, what did they, whatever. And it was that the husband was into yachting, and I ended up finding a mention of him in this like really obscure local yachting in some small town in Ontario. And that's how I found her, like, because then I was able to because then you're able to narrow it down. You go into property registers for a particular name, and then you can confirm, like, okay, yeah, that's her name, and they're still married, and na. And so she was like, yeah, and that's eventually she became my business partner because it was an important thing. We found her, and
One of the things that I always look at whenever I start any investigation, especially when it's concerning due diligence or asset protection, looking at an individual, is I don't look at them as a person. I always look at their outer circle, who they're connected with. And
mhm,
that's where the most vulnerable things come in, right? Because if I want to go after the president of a company, of course, he's going to be protected. His life's going to be locked down. He's going to have
mhm.
passwords and everything, 2FA. But guess who has every single one of those passwords?
Secretaries.
Is exactly
Yeah,
the
yeah,
and that's like,
yeah,
I'll just call them up,
absolutely,
if you're social
yeah,
engineering, and be like, "Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm
yeah.
working directly with so and so. It'd be nice if we got a meeting on the books." And then like instantly it just flows right into,
Oh my God,
rapport.
yeah. And then the
Um,
person feels really bad after. They're
yeah,
like, oh, I told him everything. I told him everything.
they were just so nice. But one of the things that we talked about earlier on this week was you happen to bring up the fact that over 70% of crime isn't reported in Canada. And
Yeah.
I can relate to that because there's a lot of victims out there in the United States who don't know how to go about reporting some things, or they're, especially embarrassed about whatever event may have happened to them. So, what are some of your experiences with these individuals, and how do you go about passing the information over to law enforcement?
Right, right. Okay. Well, okay. So yeah, 70% of people don't report crime. But the problem here, it's actually, it's really easy to file a report. relatively easy. The police, law enforcement aren't great when they take reports, by and large. If I had to characterize, I've been doing this for 3 years, keeping busy. If I had to characterize people's relationship with the police, I would have to say disappointing. Like people, they'll report a crime if they're the victim of a crime. Like a lot of what I do, it's not like my business partner or sister, like that wasn't criminal. But if it is a crime, the police will take the report, and they might even come visit the person in a timely manner, but there's rarely follow up. Like I don't think, thinking about it, I want to be sure I'm accurate here, but I don't think, no, I've ever had a client that was the victim of a crime, truly the victim of a crime, and I gave them proof. Like, and that's another problem, actually. So we specialize in open source intelligence. So the proof, the reporting, it's digital. All of this data that we're referring to, we organize it, we make it we put it in a coherent manner, understanding that frontline law enforcement are not trained really in open source intelligence. So I'll hand them the evidence, I'll label it, describe what they're looking at, et cetera, and the client's really happy, but law enforcement doesn't, they're not. So I give people peace of mind for the most part. People that are, for example, if they're like, I deal with a lot of people that are embarrassed because they've come to realize that they might be the victim of either an investment scam or a romance scam. And often it's because people, whether or not it occurred to them first, the people around them have been saying, I think that's a scam. And people aren't very nice when they think that you're the victim of one of those scams and you're resisting, extricating yourself. People, they don't understand. They think you're being naive, you're being stupid, you're being greedy, whatever. And especially if those people have a vested interest in, say, your money, like if it's a spouse and it's an investment scam. And, so the people are like, okay, I might be in a scam here. They come to me because I'm supportive. Like I remind them, you're a victim. I understand social, like the grooming that was involved in getting those people to do what they were, getting those people to give their money, to trust the person. And so that's why, so that's why, like, the relationship that I have with people and the relationship with law enforcement is by and large disappointing and doesn't offer much. But people, when they're the victim of something, what they want to be acknowledged. And even if justice, like capital J justice, is ultimately impossible, and not just because you can't find the person. Sometimes, like about half the time, we find the person who is scamming them, because scammers are not all in Nigeria anymore. Sometimes they're like some guy like down the street, or yeah. So we do find the people responsible sometimes, but because of jurisdiction stuff and because law enforcement doesn't, whatever, people just want to be acknowledged. They're like, no, I'm a victim, you're right. And yeah, I was groomed over months. This person like said things to me that I've never heard from anyone else before, and it felt good. And being able to interact with somebody who's investigating that without feeling judged, and being given at the end of it, it's like, okay, here's the evidence. Here is an authoritative declaration of the truth. And that's what it comes down to, is that when police turn their back on a crime that has been committed, without providing an investigation, or just leaving the whole thing an open-ended question, the authoritative declaration of the truth isn't there. It's a vacuum. And if your entire family says you're stupid and you shouldn't have. Or I knew a guy, one of my clients once was facing federal charges because so he was a senior in a senior's home, and he was targeted by I think at some point his email and his password had been on a list. It was leaked at some point. And, you know, not to get in the weeds too much, but very quickly I discovered in the case that someone had been hanging out in his email address, like in his email account, quietly reading his correspondence, learning everything about him, and also deleting incoming emails that were the start of lucrative conversations or something they might get money from. They would delete the email and then they would create an email address like at Hotmail or whatever that looked from it, like just cursorily, it looked like the same address, and they would continue the correspondence with him as if they were them. I caught this because they did it to me immediately. And so what had happened with this guy is that a woman, like somebody, it was probably a dude, pretending to be a woman, knew everything about him, so knew what he cared about, knew, everything. So she pretended that she was his business partner and his romantic partner. And over weeks, months, and then one day said, "Hey, I need a favor. Can I have FedEx send you a check, like make it out to you, and can you distribute the money to my Canadian suppliers? Because it's much easier if you do it as a Canadian than if I do it and whatever." And again, this guy is senior, he's elderly, he's in a home, not necessarily picking up on this stuff, and he's like on the weirdness of that. And he's like, "Yeah, sure," gets a check in the mail for $350,000. And she's like, "Oh, good. Oh, yeah." And had been groomed in advance to have a cryptocurrency account. That's the other thing. And so she's like, "Okay, great." And then gives him like bank accounts, crypto accounts, a person to pass money to in cash, like gives him a list of whatever. And she's like, "And you'll get a cut." And he's on a limited income, so that's driving him too. Long story short, the bank, like he deposits it, it clears the bank. Like after, it was like 2 weeks, it was a big check. It opens a new account for it. It clears the bank, and it takes until FedEx notices for them to figure out that it's a scam. So, long story short, nobody sees the social engineering. All they know is that this guy shows up at the bank one day with a giant check and he's claiming that he was scammed. And it's not at all plausible because it's a $350,000 check. So he was facing federal charges, and I was on the phone so much with that guy and with the police officer. And it was just like trying to explain, look, like I know it looks bad, but in context, like this guy, like I was reading the transcripts of what she quote unquote, what she was saying to this guy. Oh God. She's like calling him daddy and like, oh God. And I looked at the picture she was sending him and I'm like, oh God. Like it was just, oh dude. And like eventually, it was the social engineering is so, it gets, people find it. I have a friend who's a consultant. She's in the fraud department of one of the major banks. And, we were talking about how people that have been social engineered into being scammed, even after like people show them evidence, like, look, I know you think that you're sending money to, this girl who you're bringing to the country, but really it's this guy in Japan. Like, you show them this and they're like, no, look, it has to be a misunderstanding. You don't understand. Like we're in love. Like they just find it really hard to to believe that all of that work, all of that was a scam. It's just like I used to volunteer for Amnesty International in Montreal. I did it for like 6 years. And it's like human trafficking, like where young girls are trafficked into sex slavery. It's the same thing. Like if you know what to say, how to say it, and you know how to tell when the person trusts you just enough that you could pull one over on them if you're fast enough, no matter how weird the request, no matter how weird it is, the whatever, if you're good enough at that, you can make people do things that makes them look stupid or crazy to other people, or calls them those things. And it's like, look, I don't like I it it makes me speechless, because it's the impact on society at large, punishing people for being generous and punishing people for taking a risk, for believing in something, um, having hope that, a lot of lonely people meet people online and are scammed because they just really want to believe. And then not only does the scammer get away with it, but the people around them don't really understand. So, they're like, what were you thinking? Why? It's really unfortunate. The last thing we need is this sort of silent, um this discouraging of being generous and having faith in people, despite, not having proof that the person you're dealing with is someone that can be trusted. I think the impact it's on society is not just financial, and the impact on people is certainly not just financial. Some of these people are approaching the end of their lives, some of these targets. Like, these will be seniors that are, they can't get out of the house much, and they find someone online and they lose their retirement savings. Like, I just think, like, if that's the last memory you have of your interaction, an intimate interaction with another human being, yeah, it's awful. And so my agency aims to be accessible and supportive, and to bring people a measure of peace of mind and a measure of, yeah, no, this matters, what was done to me. I was a victim, wasn't my fault. And I know what happened. I know what happened. Here's the facts. Been given them. Thank you. I can close the door and try to move on.
Do you think that detecting scams is getting harder? And then what are some ways that we can protect ourselves from falling for those scams?
Oh, that's a good question. Because, yeah, they are getting harder. And it's not even because of AI. I'm so tired of talking about AI, because it's not, people will, AI can only take you so far with ordinary people, right? Like, if you need to groom someone over time, I saw romance scam where I'm like, I think a lot of this conversation is AI generated. Like, I think a lot of what they're saying, like, it eliminates the typos and the bad English that used to be the first clue, right? But I mean, the reason it's getting harder is because the scammers themselves are more experienced. The script, like the formula for how to commit one of these scams, like how to, like, there's a playbook. You start and it's like, do you guys, you ever watch Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah,
remember when
absolutely.
Okay, you remember when Tom, like, Lindsay decide, or sorry, was it Lindsay? Was that her name? What was the main character's name? I can't remember. Oh no.
You're talking
Yeah, it
about
was
Jason
Leslie.
Bateman's character, or it was his
No,
sister?
no, Leslie Nope, I'm thinking of. Like, Leslie, the main character, she decided to start dating online, and she was paired with Tom on the dating site, and it said it was like a 98% level match, and the episode was like, she's like, oh my God, like, Tom, what? And it turned out that he had like 5 different dating profiles, and like, they were for, like, to attract different kinds of women, and the one that attracted her was like her favorite movie was books. Like, it was just this really nerdy profile. Every time I talk about romance scams and how they get away with it, I think of Tom, because that's what they're doing. They create all of these, and some of them are in call centers too. So they'll have like all of these profiles open, and they'll be all different people, like men, women, like, hi, I'm from the Ukraine, and I, like, if that's what someone's looking for. And then this guy will be like, hi, I'm a rocket physicist, working for the UN, and I, like, whatever, they have it all. And they just sit there at their full-time, terrible, maybe trafficked into it job, and they get really, really, really good at what they do. And you get really, really good at what you do if if it's life or death. Like if you're just a terrible, greedy person. And if the playbook works, you just apply it. It's like if you've ever done telemarketing and they give you, your boss gives you a script and they're like, play with it, make it sound natural, but like, here's what you do, here's how you overcome objections. Blah, blah, blah. That's what they're doing. And human beings are, I don't think that we are evolved enough to, like, our brains are involved enough or evolved enough to read other people over, like, virtually, as opposed to in person, like the kind of when you interact and you read people and you get to know them and you're like, okay, something's off. I don't think that the average person is able to make those distinctions with it through a computer screen. I just, things that if somebody is saying to you over months and months and months, I think that people with these in-person interactions, you start to notice that it all sounds a little fake. And not always, like there's, in-person con men and women, obviously, but I just, it's these people, like there's a playbook, it works. And I think the reason it's getting harder is because it's getting the groups of scammers that are operating these playbooks are getting more efficient and more experienced at it. And when the technology changes, like a lot of these call centers, a lot of these groups of scammers are working for organized crime. So they're paying attention to the tech. And when people are like, if you're using a playbook and there's a step in the playbook that stops working because the people, like, because of some intervention from the police that has, or some some PSA that is reaching people, and so you hit that step and people are like, oh, this is a scam, I recognize the sign. Well, the people that run that call center, they're like, okay, well, we need to change the playbook, and they change the playbook. And it's exactly like these places are run, people are doing this like it's their small business or it's their big business. It's not just random individuals and their four terrible friends deciding that they're going to make some money, and that happens too. Like, it's all of it, it's all of it's like its own industry. And there's no, like, if all of the individuals that I deal with, none of them lose enough for them to even get a call back from the police, sometimes sooner than like 3-4 months down the road. When it comes to losing money to a scam or to, it comes to losing money to fraud, if you lose less than, I don't know, like 100 grand, it's considered a small amount of money. Like, the queue for taking fraud seriously is about whole numbers. It doesn't take context into consideration. So if you lose $30,000 and you're 65 years old and you have a pension, that's your savings, like, that's a big deal. But it's not, it's the, law enforcement's like, okay, well, that's not really a big deal because this bank over there lost 300 grand, FedEx lost 350 grand. Like, they just, it's really the people that I deal with. The reason people don't report things to the police is because it's like, what's the point? They don't, that they want to move on with their lives. They
Hilarious.
don't want to be made to feel like they don't matter. They already know. So they're like, I'm not reporting that. Why? I don't need to hear that.
Hmm. I find it hilarious that law enforcement's like, yeah, we'll go help FedEx or Target or one of these big multinational corporations when they have all these fraud teams that work with them all the time, and they hire expert cybersecurity analysts to come in there and support them. So, going back to your story about the elderly gentleman, that's a very common scam where you can just get a combo list off of a dark
Hmm.
web forum, and it has thousands of username password combinations that scammers will just go through and try. And if they get access to an email, they'll just start seeing what they can do with it. And some of those, a lot of those, you have access to their cloud drives too. And I've seen where people actually lose their cryptocurrency because they save their seed phrase in
Oh,
there.
Jesus.
That
Well, because
happens
who can
too.
remember that?
Yeah, those words, yeah, you gotta put them down somewhere. You should, right? But
Yeah, it's like
putting them digitally,
560 characters. Like,
yeah, putting them somewhere, you're probably gonna lose them. But one of the things I did want to ask you, because you brought this up, and it was a fantastic way to understand that diligence and motivation has its purpose. I think it's what makes us as, if you call yourself an analyst, I think that's one of the true hallmarks of being a good analyst: motivation,
yeah.
diligence, curiosity. But it can kind of lead you down rabbit holes. So you told me about a rabbit. So
Yes, I did tell you about a rabbit.
I'd love for you to tell me about the rabbit again.
Yeah, absolutely. So early on when I opened my agency, so we get leads, we get a lot of our leads through a website called Bark. And the way it works is if you want a particular, you want a plumber, you want somebody to paint your house, you want a private investigator, you type that in and you put some information about what you're looking for and you put a little paragraph, and then it posts and people will read it, and if you're PI and the lead is there and you're like, yeah, I kind of want to do that job, so you reach out. I see this paragraph and it's, very very maturely written, very professionally, sort of like, hi, my name is, and my somebody, like, my rabbit is missing because my father, whatever, like, she's describing that the basically what happened to her. She was 16, and what happened was she, her parents weren't around, it was just her and her sister and whatever, and she left to go spend a month with her boyfriend somewhere, and the sister agreed to look after her rabbit. But while the girl was gone, the girl that was looking for a PI, her father came back and didn't realize that the sister was looking after this rabbit. So he assumed that she just abandoned it and gave it to a friend of the family. Now, there was conflict between the friend of the family and her mom, and it was this weird, like, kind of terrible thing. And just out of spite, when the girl came back, she's like, no, I want my rabbit back. And the woman wouldn't give it to her. She's like, no, I'm not giving you your rabbit. I don't think you should have the rabbit. And not at all about the 16-year, not at all about the girl. So she was like, no, this is my rabbit. I really want my rabbit back. And that's why she was looking for a PI, because she wanted to take it to court maybe, but she needed to prove where the rabbit was. And the woman said that she'd given it away. Like, instead of giving it back to the girl, she's like, yeah, no, I gave it away. She said that she had given it to, it was now a therapy rabbit, is what happened. She's like, now it's a therapy rabbit, so there's no, that's, you can't have it back because that's where it is. So I called the girl and I was like, she sent me her evidence, and she sent me these text message chains where she was texting this woman and this woman's daughter, being like, look, like, I want the rabbit back. Where is it? Like, come on, like, this isn't right. Like, it's not yours. And they were telling her, they're like, listen, you're like, what are you going to do? Call the cops? No one's going to listen to you. No one, like, what do you, and she's like, yeah, no, like, I'll take you to court if I have to. Blah, 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 blah. And, like, the 16-year-old was being mature and adult and totally justified in what she was asking for, and the adults were saying terrible things to this girl, telling her that she didn't matter and she needs to just drop it, and it made me mad. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find I'm gonna find the damn rabbit. So what we did is so she said what she said about the care home. I went into the woman's social media and using comments. So the way, you might not be able to see a friend list, but if you can see posts, what I'll do is you click on the comments, like, it'll see, or not the comments, sorry, the likes, loves, whatever. And if you see somebody that consistently reacts to different things, you're like, okay, that's someone they know. That's probably a friend. It's a close friend, maybe. And I found a friend who works at a care home, but I didn't know which one. Like, I couldn't tell which one exactly. So I went to one of these online, and this is something in open source intelligence that I use a lot of, is there are a lot of websites that are tools that are either low cost or no cost, and they are there for investigative purposes or for research purposes. In this case, it was a mapping platform that would allow you to stick a pin in it and give a certain distance from the pin, and that would draw a circle with that radius around the point in the circle. So looking at this woman's social media, I couldn't tell if she drives a car, if she takes a bus. Let's say, like at the most, roughly, she'll travel an hour to get to work every day. And then I started looking for all of the nursing homes that were within that circumference of the pin. And then started calling through every one of the nursing homes, and under the pretext of having a parent that I needed to find accommodations for who is allergic to rabbits. So, calling each of them and being like, hey, I know that I heard that, nursing homes do like animal therapy and sometimes, and that's great, but my dad is very allergic to rabbits. So do you have any? And we found one. We called like 50 nursing homes, I think, and we found one rabbit. And so, yeah, traveled to the nursing home, and under the pretext of taking a tour, we ended up meeting the rabbit. I sent a picture to the girl, and unfortunately, it was not the same rabbit. The woman, it turned out that the woman lied. Like, she hadn't. That's not where the rabbit ultimately went. She told us after that she'd given away on Kijiji. And so I did go to Kijiji too. I really wanted to find that rabbit. So yeah, we went into the historical postings on Kijiji in the pets section. It's not very long, and unless you actually remove those posts, they tend to just like stick around. And there was nothing. So I think she was lying about that too. But you know what? The point was that that girl, like, we talked a lot on the phone, and it was like, no, you need to know that this adult that's telling you these things, it's not true. What she's saying, like, yeah, maybe if you call the police, they don't care, but that's on them. That's not about you. It's not that you don't matter. It's that you're entitled to justice, and you don't have an avenue to get it. And she ended up like pursuing it in civil court. Like, she ended up getting the evidence that she needed, because there's a legal standard for the submission of digital evidence in court, and I was able to at least give her these text message chains or whatever to submit to the way that they need to be submitted in to a judge. And yeah, he took it, or she took it. So yeah, she was able to get an order that the rabbit be returned, and I don't know if she was ever able to get it. But the point is that she pushed on, because people just need to hear that no, it matters that you're a victim. It's not about, like, yeah, no, this adult that's telling you that people aren't going to pay attention to you, even if she's right, that's nonsense. They're telling you things that aren't true, and you should resist.
When this story was teased, I was really hoping that someone would have ended up in a bunny costume. So I'm a little upset by that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, I kind of wish it did.
that's okay. There's still time. There's still time.
It's
So
true.
you've mentioned evidence quite a few times. What are some of the ways that you go? What are some of the methods that you use to protect information integrity, to ensure that, it's, especially if you're turning evidence over for law enforcement, that nothing has
Right.
been altered? What are some of the processes that you use to preserve that?
Right. So are you familiar with Hunchley?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we use Hunchley to, whenever I'm conducting a digital investigation, I use Hunchley, and I use it, as many of the features as I can get away with. Hunchley's great because it does a lot of it records all of the metadata from all of the pages that we land on that we need, and it allows me to pull. If I need a social media page, I could pull the page either from Hunchley or also from Fireshot. Basically, when I was trained to be a private investigator, the only thing of relevance to open source intelligence that I've taken away from it is that there is a legal standard for the submission of digital evidence. Hunchley is named specifically in the case precedent. So I just make sure that, like, for example, with text message chains, like, I just make sure that I get the closest to original transcript as possible, and then secure it, save it in an encrypted folder, and then it's there. Anything specifically that the client needs to submit or might need to submit in court, I then pay specific attention to making sure that people like to send me, that's actually one of the things that's really important about the work I do with private individuals, is that they're victimized in ways where they're like, basically they walk into a police station with their phone and they're like, look at this, like, you can't report, you can't submit evidence that way. So, and then the police aren't any better, like, they don't know what to tell you, like, they're just like, yeah, they don't, they don't know how to ask for what they need to use that as evidence. So they just sort of, well, I probably can't do anything for you anyway, and then whatever. When people come to me, if they hire me in our initial conversation while they're considering us, that's one of the things I point out, is that if I conduct an investigation and I find that, like, let's say, yeah, you're being scammed, and I find the person, the proof that you're being scammed, I will pull it and provide it to you per the legal standard that digital evidence needs to be in to submit it in court. And then the only problem is, and it shouldn't be complicated, but then the only problem is getting it to law enforcement. Like, for example, I once had a client who was being targeted. I get a lot of harassment cases too. So it was a woman being targeted by who she knew was her ex-husband. And he was sending her text messages from a rotating succession of VoIP numbers, so that, she'd block one and then another one would pop up, blah, 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 blah. And the messages were pages long. They were upsetting, vulgar, threatening, but she needed to prove it was him. I run into that problem a lot where they're like, can you prove who this is? And the way what I was able to do was, so what he was doing is he would use one VoIP app, use a phone number, and then switch to another one with the same app, and then switch to another app, and then another, and then go back to the original app and change the phone numbers. And he used the same apps all the way down, and then he was doing the same thing. I don't know why. I think it was just to save the money or whatever, or habit, but he was doing the same thing, communicating with her as himself. Like, they had kids, so like there was communication between them where he was like, yeah, it's me, and it was the same thing, same pattern of behavior and usage. And this is in a pool of, like, there was many different apps that you could use. Like, it was a clear pattern that identified a particular person doing this, and I was able to put it on a spreadsheet with links to each, like, chronological links to each of the like a transcript, original transcript from the text message to each of the text messages. It was chronological, and I was able to show, and it was like a column for the app that was used, and it was clear. It was an obvious link. Like, we made it as coherent as possible. It was really, like, it was very data heavy. Like, we were using data, like metadata pulling methods that, trying to explain that to the police was pointless. But we couldn't get the evidence to the police, because they're like, well, can you attach it in a PDF to an email? And I'm like, no, it's like 6 months worth of, no, like, if you want the evidence, it's not possible to attach by PDF. You have to, and I sent them a link, like a Proton link, to download from our encrypted server. And they're like, we can't use this. We can't use the link. And we ended up having a back and forth. This is the RCMP. We ended up having a back and forth about it. And I'm like, I sent them a USB key in the mail, was how we solved it. And I'm like, I don't even have a USB key. I, and it's like, I don't know, like they have these like Microsoft cybersecurity systems that, you have like that I recognized from when I was doing nonprofit management, like the same office cybersecurity apparatus that's protecting people who just like they check their email, maybe they can use Excel, but otherwise are just stopped from doing absolutely any interaction with the internet that is not like strictly necessary. And you just can't I just don't understand how they work that way as investigators at this point in history. Like,
I can totally empathize with you when it comes to working with government employees and having them understand how the data can be useful for an investigation. Good example for me was I worked a lot with advertising data, and I managed to find a pattern of VPN usage in a foreign country that would be beneficial for a military operation. And so I handed it over to the government customer who was supposed to kind of do it like a quick QA QC check because I was a contractor. So they had to kind of review it before it went to the final customer. And their exact words were, and I was happy they were honest about it. They said very bluntly, I don't understand it, so I don't feel comfortable sending it to anyone. So that does happen a lot whenever you get information like this that's new and novel. A
yeah.
more local story is I went to New York to a cryptocurrency conference. That prosecutor was read up on cryptocurrency investigations. I mean, he could sit there and tell me exactly how a wallet stood up, how scams got started. Not even 6 months later, I go to a different cryptocurrency conference. That prosecutor couldn't even spell crypto. It was a drastic difference going from one state to another at a state level, like a provincial level. But Chris
Right.
has an excellent question to ask you because he, much like you are, he's a very curious individual when it comes to people, no matter what their background is. So he always
Right.
finds something that he doesn't tell me before the podcast. I get like an insane note on our podcast notes, and I'm like, dude, what does this mean? And then I find out
Like,
when he asks the question. So he has something he wants to ask you.
All right. So first of all,
Okay.
you've done a really good job at OPSEC. You're a very hard person to find breadcrumbs for, which I appreciated. I thought that was fun.
yeah.
And I will say that at least throughout this episode, you have almost 100% accurately recited your LinkedIn profile, which I thought was added credence. So that was great.
Thank you.
And I do want to bring up, you went to the Algonquin College of Applied Arts and Technology. So lately, I've
did.
been reading the Algonquin Times from that college, and there's a big goose problem right now. Like they've
No.
tried to evict them. The goose are harassing people. They haven't been able to do it. So I have two goose questions. One, has that always been a problem at that college?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and then
Because, oh my God, I'd have been all over that. That's amazing.
and then two, there's a theory floating around, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the theory is that Canadians twice a year during the spring solstice and the winter solstice go outside and release their anger into the geese. Is that like, what's that ritual like?
I don't even. I I love when Americans talk about Canadians because the stereotypes are so harmless. Like it can't even be insulted. Like they'll make fun of how nice Canadians are. I'm like, I don't know. I that's nonsense. Canadians are not very nice. We know sarcasm. We say about exactly the way the word is supposed to be said. But yes, our milk does come in bags. Um,
Thing like
but
the
I will
geese, then
say
I'm
about
scared.
I'm sorry. I'll say, but the geese, first of all, we don't like the solstice. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's witches stuff. I don't know. But
Covering
the
up. She's definitely
geese,
covering up.
yeah, it's true. You're right. No, I lived in Toronto for a while, and I lived right next to a place called Black Creek, and it's basically like this sort of like wetlands preserve. And like all the geese, the thing with geese is that when they have babies, they have like 10 of them. So, and they're really protective and geese, like they're like they're good moms. So like we'd there's a go through there to go to the store, like where these wetlands are, and there's all these geese, and whenever their goslings are born, there is a bit of problematic interactions for sure. It's tough to walk through, like you're on the paths and you're like, I need to avoid that goose. um, Actually, I have a funny beaver story. I know it's only tangent. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, so at that place, they have all these species of animals there. They have like tortoises, they have, well, no, not tortoises, but they have turtles, they have they have geese, they have ducks, which, by the way, when ducks walk on cement, if it's wet, it sounds like flippers. Like it's like slap, 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 and it's amazing. The geese too. But the one night I was going to the pharmacy and I was walking through Black Creek and there were beavers in the water. And I was like, oh my God, beavers. And I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna sit on this rock and I'm gonna watch these beavers. And it turned out they were building a dam around a sewer that was there to keep to keep it from flooding when it rains. And I was like, this is amazing. I just sat there for like 20 minutes and watched these beavers dam the sewer. And then 2 weeks later, I was going through and they had put up a fence. Like they put up a fence that was just the size of the sewer and put it up around the sewer. And I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's the best. Like how they damned it so well that local municipal like wildlife whatever had to come and be like, okay, let's
do something about these beavers. Those damn beavers, man.
yeah, what did you say? Yeah, exactly.
Those damn beavers.
Yeah, it was good.
Just for this one, for the first part, we're gonna cut it right here.
Right.
So I'm gonna do like a
Yeah,
little
okay.
exit. Okay. But anyway,
Sure.
Charlie, thank you so much for your wonderful stories. We really enjoy hearing from individuals who have novel ways of approaching investigations, especially when it comes to online investigations, because like you said, a lot of PIs, they have that traditional methodology of, hey, we're going to go stake out this place, we're going to follow this individual, we're going to go try to get to the police to pull phone records so we can do like a warrant-based evidence approach. But OSINT
Yeah.
now is just as applicable as some of those traditional methodologies. So I want to say thank you for sharing your stories. And is there anything you have coming up? Are you attending any conferences? Do you have any publications? Anything that you want to let our listeners know about to be on the lookout for?
No, well, no, just this, and like the truth is, I'm too busy for a lot of that stuff. Whenever an opportunity comes along, I do attend. I do, but I'm pretty busy. Like when you target, like I almost feel like I'm a social worker a little bit. Like whenever I have cases, like I get calls all the time and clients that just want to, like a talk through evidence or whatever. And because I'm actually like, if you're at an advanced level with open source intelligence, the truth is, it's like you can answer almost all investigative questions strictly via OSINT. I don't leave my desk very often, if I'm being honest. So I'm not attending
She
anything.
was like, I'm happy that someone doesn't leave their desk like I do and responds to emails. It was like 10 o'clock at night.
I don't leave my desk.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't respond to emails though.
Yeah, no, I'm always, yeah, that's so I'm not attending conferences or any of that like anytime soon, but I encourage people, if they have something in their life where they're like, oh, this is really weighing on me, and an authoritative declaration of the truth would really be great. We make ourselves accessible to everybody. So we want to hear from you. A lot of PI agencies, like, they'll turn away individuals. They won't respond to stuff. So you've got people that are not reporting crime. They're also not turning to PIs because they don't see themselves as the market for PIs. And to be fair, if for the most part they're not, but we're here for you. we want people to know that we're here.
That's Sydney Black Investigations, right?
That's it. And Sydney Black is the name of the bird.
Oh, okay.
If anybody, yeah, just FYI. It's not my name.
So definitely want to follow up in a future podcast with you, because I don't want to
Okay.
take up too much more of your time today. But Chris, do you have anything else that you like to?
Yeah, I do. Okay. All right. Given
Okay.
your arts and your performance background, at some point
Yeah.
in the near future, are you going to recreate or create the Jessica Jones musical for community theater?
Oh my God. No, Jessica Jones musical would be kind of a bummer. Have you seen it? Like she's kind of like, it would be like gothic music. It would be very like like Nirvana, and like
I'm sold already.
she's
You
a lot of
don't have to keep selling it. I'm down.
yeah. Like, no, sold. No, but I think that I think that my agency would make a really good like CBC TV show. Like I kind of want to like pitch like the rabbit story is a really amazing, like it's like the funny episode, and then the suicide is like the season finale, like the multiple, yeah, maybe a TV show. I don't know about a musical.
If the rabbit story gets on TV, someone's definitely going to be in a bunny costume.
You know what? And I'll dedicate that to you at the end of the episode. I'll thank you.
If you put out a casting call, Chris will sign up for it.
Yeah, I'll wear a bunny costume.
Amazing. Keep the beard out though.
Yes.
Bearded bunny.
Certainly.
Oh my God, that's a band name. Anyways.
All right.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. But thank you guys. If you enjoy the content, please leave a like and also share with your friends. And I love hearing stories where it's actually practitioner knowledge rather than some, just saying, I use these resources without actually giving a story. So Charlie, thank you so much for that.
Of course. Yeah, the story's everything.
But this has been the OSINT Output with Chris and Tim.
And Charlie. Tim and Chris.